Alright, guys, welcome back to Game and Compute. So, here is your one stop shop to getting tips for making money, especially when you have a side hustle going on. If you're trying to build a fan base, if you're trying to build an audience, if you're trying to get additional customers, all of these things add to your content, your product, and your brand being spread out wide enough that you can potentially get some financial benefit from it. So today we're going to talk a bit about basics, right? So I like to provide valuable tips on here, just providing basic information. So I can tell you about one way that I got started when I first started looking into these side hustles and first started wanting to make some funds on the side. The first thing I really looked at was how much time am I spending? How much extra funds will I be needing? How much additional resources do I need to actually get up, started, and rolling, right? So, one thing that you can really take away is trying to figure out what it is that you can do to make the most amount of money in the least amount of time with the least amount of resources. I'm not saying don't put in effort. You can still put in a whole lot of effort. But say, for example, if you're online on some of these weird, like, pay-per-click websites, right? We've all seen those weird surveys where you do, like, 100 surveys, and say it'll say something like, do 100 surveys and get $10, right? So it sounds all good and well, right? But you have to think in general, how long is it going to take you to do 100 surveys? And so the first thing I usually recommend doing when you find anything that's going to make you some form of funds is research that. Research what it is that's going to make you funds and find out how you actually get paid. Figure out what it is that you need to do. Find out what it is that's generally recommended for you to do on your own. And do those things. So, for example, okay, let's take the example of, say there's a website called Click My Survey or something, and they offer 100 surveys completed, you're gonna get $10, right? So I'm making this up completely off the top of my head. It doesn't even exist, right? As far as I know. So you have this thing that seems too good to be true, first off, right? So it doesn't seem likely or possible or even something that could happen, getting $10, right? So you would ideally want to think that for $10, I don't know where you live. I live in California. So $10 here isn't even minimum wage. So $10, I would say, in California, if it's going to take me more than 1 hour to get that $10, it might not really be worth the $10, really. I mean, if you can't really get it in an hour, right? Because you're saying you're making $10 an hour. That means 100 surveys in 1 hour will get you the $10, potentially, right? But you want to look out for different tricks that people play on these types of potential side hustle type websites, right? And so they're getting money for the people who sign up for these sites and who click on these things, right? How can they possibly give out $10 per person that hits 100, right? That seems like it would be an easy task. So you want to take into consideration the length of the survey, right? Yeah, you can do 100 surveys if they're really quick like straight to the point little surveys, right? But 100's a big number. So if each survey takes you like an hour and a half to do, that's already 90 minutes times 100. That's how many minutes you're going to be spending if you're really cranking these out. Is that going to be worth the $10? So that's one thing you want to know. Another thing to pay attention to on any of those types of sites is going to be your, what do you call it? So basically, you're going to have these, sorry, I'm totally blanking, guys. You're gonna have these caps, right? So, say for example, there's a maximum amount of surveys that they're gonna send you over a certain amount of time. So, say if you need to get through 100 to get the $10, that's possible to get $10 an hour if you're able to do all 100 surveys within the hour, right? But likely they're not going to give you opportunities for 100 surveys all at once. Very likely this is going to be, whatever site this is, it's just very likely it's going to be the type of site that gives you 10 surveys and then you max out at 10 surveys, and it might be 10 surveys per day. It might be 10 surveys per week. It might be 10 surveys just to get the ball rolling, to get you started, just so that you have a buy-in. And then from that point, once you've done the 10 surveys, they might send you one at a time, once every month or so. And so if you think about it like that, the job that could have potentially been a $10 job, a $10 an hour side hustle, if you're doing all this work, say if it was potentially best case scenario, short surveys all at once, you're definitely going to get the payout. Potentially, if the payout was going to be same day, which that hardly ever happens either, you're going to want to know these things, right? You want to know how long it's supposed to take you to get to that $10 amount, and then duplicate it if you can even get the first $10 in the first place, right? So what you're usually going to notice is that it's going to take you longer than expected, right? Because they're usually going to bait you by saying, hey, $10 an hour. That sounds great. Even if it is lower than minimum wage where you live, $10 an hour, I mean, dude, do that for 10 hours and you got $100. Especially if there's no overhead, there's no tax taken out, there's no fee. That can be decent money. Even though it's not a whole lot of money, if you had nothing coming in, I mean, that would be a good $700 a month. If you're just trying to do the $100 a day, and if it was possible, right? But the thing is, they don't make it so these things are actually possible. And so it's important to pay attention to reviews. Try YouTube, try Better Business Bureau, websites like those, to read about the items that you found, or the money-making strategies that you found. You want to figure out, what that actually looks like, what your actual goal is. If you're trying to make $100 a day, you don't want to get lied to, right? And so you want something that's actually going to get you the money. So that would be my first tip. Honestly, guys, scope out the site that you're going to use, that you're interested in. If it's a website, if it's a program, it can be a class. I'm telling you guys from experience, I have purchased classes. Let me see. I think it was I'm going to blank on names. So I think one of the first ones I purchased was called like the 99% or something like that. I can't remember. Sorry. It was maybe like 3 years ago. But the first thing I purchased, that was one of the first things I purchased when I started getting into this side hustle lifestyle. That was one of the first things I purchased. And I noticed I was spending so much time in these videos. You can't move on from one step to the next until you finish the other ones. You can't multitask. So I wasn't able to listen to my videos that I needed. Like, say if it was, for example, classes 1 through 20, I couldn't listen to class 3 without listening to class 2. Couldn't listen to class 2 without listening to class 1. I couldn't have that website, or I think it was a website. I don't know if it was an app, but I couldn't have the website playing at the same time as doing something else. So my phone at that time, I remember, was my primary computing, resource that I had. Where I lived, I didn't have Wi-Fi, but I was able to get data. I was able to use my data to go online. And so, I was using a lot of data listening to these videos, but I couldn't like listen to the video and have it playing in the background while I was like taking notes on a notepad, or while I was working on a website or doing something simultaneously on my phone. I couldn't do those things. And so that was one thing that, I would say caution should be used when you're using these different types of classes and programs. And you know some of them, I'd really want to call them schemes and scams, because you're using them, you're paying a fee to use. Say, I think it was like $35 or maybe even up to $90 a month or something. It was a ridiculous amount of money, and I was seeing no return on this investment. Even if it was $30 a month, I wasn't making $30 a month from this. And I don't know how many months I spent. I want to say maybe 3-4 months before I was like, let's cut this fat and like get out of here. This is a scam. I'm not even getting anywhere. There was nothing that I could apply where I was seeing results. It was more listening and promises of, it was more like motivational, like, all right, you can make this money and you can do this and you can do that. But it was like, okay, I'm investing all this money. Some other programs that were different, like I was saying, like those ones where you're it's not a class, but it's like a survey site where you're supposed to be doing a task to get the funds. That was more of an investment of time and energy. I wasn't receiving, even up to the $10 minimum, and after a while you kind of get to a point where you're like, how much time do I want to waste? How much money and resources do I want to waste before I start getting a profit, right? Even if you're breaking even, I'll say this honestly, guys, even if you're breaking even, or even if you're making less than you're putting in, if you're making some form of income, that can still be beneficial. But it's gonna be up to you to weigh, how much do I really want to keep investing my efforts, my money, my time, my resources into this activity, or into this whatever it is that you're doing at that point. How much do you want to really invest in it without getting a profit, right? Because profit is the goal. When you start seeing profit, that's when you're going to be pretty pumped up, and you're going to be like, yeah, I made $5 on top of what I was making, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind, is the money. And keeping track, even hourly, even, like treat it like it's a job, right? Treat it like if you have a 9 to 5, or if you've ever had one, or if kind of what that is, or just even hourly work. A lot of times, you should have in mind, honestly, how much is it worth to you? Because that is a personal answer. To some people, it might be worth a whole day's work for you to make $10. It might be worth 8 hours for you to make $10, depending what you're doing. I mean, some things are like, okay, like if I'm really just like in the learning process of something, maybe $10 to $30 a day might not be the worst thing if I'm learning in the process and making some money. But again, what I was trying to get at is, it's an individual kind of goal setting task that really is important to kind of pay attention to, is setting your goals, setting what you think is good for you. Because I can't say what that would be, and nobody else can really tell you that. But I would say if the amount of effort, if the amount of spending that you're putting into your side hustle is giving you what you want fully, then, good. Good. That's great. I'm happy for you. That's awesome. But I know that when people are new to this, something that they often see occur is they're spending time, they're spending money, they're getting scammed and schemed into all these things that don't even work. And it's hard to even realize what was working when you're not really fully tracking it. That's why it's good to have a calendar out, have like a day planner out, track, when did I start? I do that on my own when I'm doing podcast recordings, when I'm doing blog edits, when I'm doing like websites, like designing them, when I'm posting stuff up online for sales, and when I'm, driving around looking for products, when I'm in the store shopping for things. I consider all of that hourly time, and however much money comes out of that, as far as the gas, the buying, maybe I had to buy lunch during that time. That's an extra expense. All the hours and minutes that add up that go into, a side hustle and the different aspects and pieces of it. It's really important to kind of keep track of that, because it's easy to lose sight, and it's also easy to not fully notice how much you're expending, how much effort and energy is going out, and how much benefit and reward you're receiving back. So those are kind of different things. I use those words like benefit and reward. I guess benefit to me would be more of like a personal thing, like, oh, I feel like this is giving me more motivation even though I tried all day and didn't make any money, or I'm getting more like hyped up about it and like getting more ideas. It's a benefit if you're getting something out of it, even if it's not a monetary gain. If you're gaining knowledge, if you're gaining motivation, if you're gaining some form of joy, or like you got the wheels kind of churning, gears churning around in there. Some people like that feeling. I like that feeling. I like learning stuff and solving problems and putting the pieces together and, figuring out what A plus B equals, like I like to do that kind of thing. But, a reward would be something like money, or something that you get in return for what you do that's more of like a physical thing. So maybe like money, or like what would you call it? Like viewers, or listeners, or kind of like anything that's growing, but it's like a physical thing that you've kind of attained and obtained from the efforts you're putting in. So saying that, like, if you didn't put in that effort, you likely wouldn't have had that additional reward of some sort. You likely wouldn't have that money if you didn't put in that effort you did for those days. You likely wouldn't have that like those extra viewers, that extra few people that you can add to your email list. You wouldn't have those things if you weren't putting in the effort. And a lot of times I would just say, honestly, like, that's why I mentioned that it can be a slow build, right? It can be a very slow build, to go from what's the smallest amount of reward you're willing to get in return for the efforts that you put in. So whether that's money, or the amount of customers you're getting, it can be anything. Anything that you would consider a reward. And then also you want to consider what your losses would look like. What's too much of a loss? For some people, spending a whole day to not make $10 is too much of a loss. That's too much of a waste of a day. But yeah, I was able to finally narrow it down. Once I calculated all those things and started paying attention to all those details, I noticed which things were kind of like, this makes me so unmotivated, I take a couple weeks off. when this thing happens, like when I try the surveys and I don't get any money, or when I try a different site and it doesn't pan out to like any form of income, or when I make like 5 cents after doing like a whole lot of work. There are different things that just aren't going to be motivating, that, you know, it's important to notice what that is that comes up and what it is that you can do about it. Ultimately, you can just stop. I mean, ultimately, you can quit and try something different. But it does help a lot of times to stick to something. That's what I was gonna mention, is that if you're making a small amount of reward, a small amount of money, if you're seeing a small amount of progress, even if it's not evening out or a profit, if it's not either of those, but you're seeing you went from 0 to some number, you want to gauge for yourself, is that amount of progress you're making good enough for the time being, and how much of that progress would you need to scale up? So progress meaning like, you know, like the amount of YouTube viewers you have. If you have a YouTube channel, are you getting more subscribers? The amount of views versus subscribers, the amount of time people are spending on your site. If you have a blog or a website, how many views are you getting? How many visitors are you getting? How many purchases are you getting on your online store? How much money are you making from all of this? Those types of things, you want to know if those are adding up the way you want them to. And early phases are something to keep in mind. It might be an early phase, so you want to ask yourself, how long can I be in this early phase before it becomes problematic, right? If I'm gaining 3 YouTube viewers a day and gaining 10 views every day, from posting one video every day, and one video takes me 20 minutes every day, and I'm getting $1 per 2 weeks, you know, if that's all the progress I'm seeing is the 5 and the 10 and then the $1, how many weeks do I feel like I can keep that up at the same exact rate before I need to either change my strategy, or alter it, you know, somewhat, tweak it somewhat. So say, you know, you can scale something up like that, right? So if I'm getting 5 subscribers every time I post a video, and every video I post is getting 10 views, then what happens if I post 2 videos? Am I getting double the subscribers per day? Am I getting 10 subscribers and then 20 views? And then am I getting $2 a week from that? Like, I want to look, you know, if I'm spending 40, that would be 40 minutes a day to post 2 videos to get $2 a week. And, you know, so you're doubling it. Like, is that what it looks like, right? You want to do the math, do the numbers, see if what you're getting out, see if the result, the output, is equal to what you want, or close to what you want, or getting towards what you want. And if it's not, are you able to scale it up so that it's predictable, so that you can say, hey, if I want to make $30 in a week, that means I have to post 30 videos in a week, and that means it's going to be 30 times 20, you know, that's a good 500 minutes, or 500 minutes worth $30 to me, over a week span, right? So that's kind of what I'm talking about, and I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna keep posting more tips. I hope this was a good tip for you guys, just mainly the goal setting aspect of things. Really, you know, keeping track of those numbers, keeping track of which phases you're in, keeping track of what's okay for you, what's not okay for you. If it's not okay for you, change your strategies up. If it is okay for you, stick with it. And then always taking into account that, you know, a lot of side hustles, they tend to change. So an example, I just a quick example, you know, I used to do iPhone resale, you know. So I used to get, I think it was back when iPhone 6 was still newer. It wasn't brand new, but it was new enough that it still had a value of like probably close to like $130, $120 on a good day. And I would go near the end of the month and, because that's what people have rent due, and then that would be a good time to buy, right? So I could buy them at a lower rate, and I would purposely try to purchase the ones with the cracked screens, but I would test it. I would say in the ad and everything, if you want to make money, you can contact me. Bring your phone with a broken screen, iPhone 6. And, I stuck to one product, which was the iPhone 6. I stuck to a basic, checklist of, does it work? It has to be able to work. Meaning when I plug it in, I have to be able to see that the battery holds a charge, that it actually is charging. I have to be able to see if it works. Like as in being able to use the touchscreen. The touchscreen has to still work even if it's cracked. The IMEI has to be good. It can't be stolen. It can't be. Another thing to pay attention to with iPhones, at least back then, I don't know right now, but the IMEI was written on the back of the actual original phone casing. So that needed to work. The battery needed to work. All the ports needed to work. So audio, like the mic, the speakers, the charging port, the buttons, the home button, it all needed to work. So if I was buying these from people for $40, they would get $40 cash right up front if I was able to test all that. Wi-Fi needed to work. It needed to be not connected to iCloud. It needed to be ready to use, like immediate use needed to be available. And so if all of those things panned out, then I'd give the person the $40. I'd have them sign a page saying, their name, their address, their phone number, a copy. I'd take a picture of their driver's license or ID, and I would, keep track of, who I was buying from in case it came back on me that this was stolen. But I had methods of actually checking it too. I would tell them beforehand what to send me so that when I met them in person, it wasn't like, oh, you never told me, or oh, I didn't know and we wasted all this time and energy. It's like, nah, it's going to be on you if you waste the time, because I've already explained to you that if it doesn't, if I can't charge it, or if it's not meeting my criteria, I'm not going to buy this from you, if it doesn't meet my standards. And I wouldn't buy it from people. I would meet them in a public place. It would be either a fast food restaurant, because back then I could meet people in restaurants. I could meet at a fast food restaurant or outside of a gas station. I would have my own phone with available hotspot, so I would see if I could connect to Wi-Fi there if I needed to do that. I would basically just do this whole thing, and for me, like making an extra 80 or so bucks per, selling one item, that was a pretty decent return on investment. $40, you get back, you spend $40, you get back 120, 130 or so once you sell it. I would buy maybe like the screens for like maybe $5. I had the tools already. I think I got like a $15 little electronics toolkit that specifically had the screwdrivers for the iPhone star screws. That's completely what I did. Like, and it worked, right? But the items now are pretty obsolete. Like, you can buy an iPhone 6 for maybe $20 or less in very good condition. So, yeah. So things like that, you want to keep in mind that not everything is timeless. Side hustles come and go. Trends come and go. But we'll talk some more about that in some of the upcoming episodes. So I'm trying to keep these near 30 minutes. So I hope this was enjoyable and helpful content. Just want to tell you guys, stick with it. Definitely test your methods. Don't get too excited. Don't purchase too much merch. too quickly before you know you can sell it. Don't invest too much time and energy in things. It's good to go with your momentum, good to go with the energy, good to go with the motivation. I feel you on that. I'm one of those people that, like, I don't know where my motivation is going to be day to day. So sometimes when I'm pumped up, I'm like, let's just do it. Let's do it all. Let's buy the website and get the domain name and get the software and get the, and I'm like, dude, like, few $100s in, and it's like I don't even know what I'm doing. So you want to make sure you know what you're doing. You want to make sure all the efforts that you put out are gonna come back with results that you want. um but yeah, hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for listening, guys. Good luck out there.